I never thought I'd have to fight for my own home at the age of 69. The home where I raised my son, where I nursed my husband through his final days, where every floorboard and door frame held a memory. But there I was, sitting in the third row of the county auction house, my weathered hands clutching the registration paddle so tightly my knuckles had turned white. Across the room I could see her, my daughter-in-law, Vanessa. Sleek black hair pulled into a tight bun, designer clothes that probably cost more than 3 months of my Social Security checks. She didn't notice me at first. She was too busy laughing with her real estate agent friend, their heads bent together in conspiratorial glee. Lot 47, the property at 1842 Maple Avenue, the auctioneer announced, his voice echoing through the hall. 2-story Victorian, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, on a 1/4-acre lot. Opening bid at $150,000. My heart clenched. That was my address, my home for the past 40 years. The place where I'd planted the magnolia tree when my Thomas was born. Where I'd measured his height against the kitchen door frame. Where I'd scattered some of Harold's ashes in the garden he'd loved so much. And now, it was on the auction block because of a tax lien I hadn't known existed until it was too late. A tax lien that Vanessa, my own son's wife, had somehow engineered. I caught her eye then. She spotted me, nudged her friend, and they both smiled. She raised her hand in a little mocking wave. I could read her lips across the room. Say goodbye to your house, Margaret. What she didn't know was that I hadn't come unprepared. What she didn't know was that Margaret Sullivan had one last card to play. I remember the day Thomas brought Vanessa home. She was beautiful, charming, and attentive. She asked about all the photos on the walls, complimented my peach cobbler, and seemed genuinely interested in Harold's coin collection. I was so happy that my son had found someone who made him smile again after the rough years following his father's death. She's perfect, I told Thomas that night after she left. Don't let that one get away. How blind I had been, how foolish. The first sign came at their wedding 3 months later. Harold had left Thomas his grandfather's pocket watch, a gold Waltham that had been in our family for generations. Thomas had planned to wear it at the wedding, but Vanessa convinced him it was too old-fashioned. I bit my tongue. It wasn't my place to interfere. After they married, they moved to Boston for Vanessa's job at a prestigious law firm. Thomas, an elementary school teacher, found a position at a private school. I was proud of them both, even as I missed having my son nearby. We spoke weekly, and Thomas visited when he could, though those visits grew less frequent as the years passed. 5 years into their marriage, Thomas called with news that shattered my world. "Mom, I've been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer." The words didn't register at first. My son, my beautiful, kind, healthy son, couldn't be dying. He was only 35. I flew to Boston the next day. Thomas looked gaunt, his skin sallow. Vanessa was there, of course, handling the medical appointments and insurance paperwork with clinical efficiency. I offered to stay, to help care for him. "That's not necessary, Margaret," Vanessa said. "I've already arranged for a home nurse. Besides, your house isn't exactly accessible for someone with Thomas's condition." So I returned home, making weekly trips to Boston instead. Each visit, I found my son more diminished, in greater pain. He tried to be strong for me, but I could see the fear in his eyes. During one visit, while Vanessa was at work, Thomas confided in me. "Mom, I need you to know something," he whispered, his voice weak. "I've changed our will. The house on Maple Avenue. I want you to have it back." I was confused. "Back? But it's my house." "Thomas." He looked surprised. "No, Mom. Don't you remember? After Dad died, you transferred the deed to me for estate planning purposes. Your financial advisor recommended it to avoid probate." A vague memory surfaced. Harold's death had left me in a fog of grief. I'd signed whatever papers our family attorney had put in front of me. trusting that Harold had arranged everything properly. "Vanessa doesn't know yet," Thomas continued. "I just signed the papers yesterday. But the house will be yours again, free and clear. I want you to have security." 2 weeks later, my son was gone. At the funeral, I stood alone while Vanessa received condolences from her colleagues and friends. My friends from back home had come, but we were clearly separate from Vanessa's circle. It was as if we were at different funerals. After everyone had left, Vanessa approached me at the gravesite. "Margaret, we need to talk about the house," she said without preamble. "The house?" I asked, still numb with grief. "Yes. Thomas told me he was planning to transfer it back to you, but he never got the chance to file the paperwork. Legally, it's still mine." I stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. "But that was his wish, Vanessa. He wanted me to have security in my old age." She adjusted her designer sunglasses, obscuring her eyes. "I'm sure he did. But wishes aren't legally binding. Facts are. And the fact is, I'm his widow and his sole heir." She handed me her business card. "My attorney will be in touch about your living arrangements." I should have fought harder then. I should have contacted a lawyer immediately. But grief had hollowed me out, left me unable to think clearly. So I returned to the house, my house, and waited for the other shoe to drop. It took 6 months. A certified letter arrived informing me that property taxes on the house were delinquent for the past 3 years, totaling $24,867 with penalties and interest. The county would be placing a tax lien on the property, and if the amount wasn't paid within 60 days, the house would be sold at auction. I was stunned. I had always paid my taxes on time. I had the canceled checks to prove it. I called the county tax assessor's office and discovered that the tax bills had been redirected to a P.O. box in Boston 3 years earlier. Vanessa's P.O. box. When I called her, she was dismissive. It must have been an oversight in Thomas's financial planning. He was handling all of that before he got sick. "But I have proof I paid the taxes," I insisted. "To the wrong account, apparently," she said. "Look, Margaret, I'm sorry about the mix-up, but I can't just come up with $25,000. The firm has me on a reduced schedule while I'm grieving, and I have my own bills to pay. This is my home, Vanessa. Your husband, my son, wanted me to have it." There was a long pause before she responded. "Actually, I'm planning to sell it. The real estate market in your area is quite hot right now. Once it sells, I'll make sure you get something to help with a senior apartment." The line went dead. I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed my family for decades and felt the world closing in around me. That's when I called Betty, my oldest friend, and the retired paralegal who'd worked for the district attorney for 30 years. "She's stealing your house, Marge," Betty said bluntly after I explained the situation. "And she's using the tax lien as a legal way to do it. But here's what she doesn't know. You can still pay off that lien before the auction. You just need the money." "I don't have that kind of cash," I admitted. "My savings are almost gone after helping with Thomas's medical bills." Betty was silent for a moment. "What about Harold's coin collection? Thomas didn't take that when you transferred the house, did he?" "No, it's still in the safe in the basement." Harold had been collecting rare coins since he was a boy. He'd shown Thomas the collection many times, explaining the history and value of each piece, but my son had never been interested in numismatics. "Get it appraised," Betty suggested. "Today." The next morning, I took the collection to Simmons Rare Coins in town. Mr. Simmons had known Harold and examined the collection with reverent hands. "Your husband had an excellent eye, Mrs. Sullivan," he said, after nearly 2 hours of careful examination. "Particularly for these early American gold pieces. The 1822 half-eagle alone is worth significant money." "How significant?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. Mr. Simmons removed his glasses and polished them thoughtfully. "For the entire collection, in today's market, I could offer you $175,000, and that's being conservative. I nearly fell off my chair. That much? Gold holds its value, Mrs. Sullivan, and rare coins like these only appreciate. Your husband made some very smart investments. That afternoon, I visited the county tax office and paid the delinquent taxes in full, obtaining a certificate showing the lien had been satisfied. I then called Vanessa. I've paid the tax lien, I told her. The house is no longer in jeopardy of being auctioned. You what? Her surprise was evident. How did you manage that? I found a way, I said simply. Now about transferring the house back to me. As Thomas wanted. That's not happening, she cut in, her voice hardening. Satisfying the lien just means the county won't seize the property. It doesn't change ownership. The house is still legally mine and I'm still selling it. I felt as if I'd been punched in the stomach. But why? You don't need this house. You don't even want to live here. Because, Margaret, this property is worth over $500,000 in today's market. Do you have any idea what that kind of money means to me? It means freedom. It means I can finally leave the firm and start my own practice, the way Thomas and I planned before he got sick. By stealing my home. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. It's not stealing if it's legally mine. Her tone was matter-of-fact, devoid of any empathy. The auction is still happening, just through a private company now. I suggest you start packing. The auction notice arrived a week later. Vanessa had indeed arranged for a private auction through Elite Property Solutions. The date was set for June 15th, just 3 weeks away. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the notice, when my eyes caught on a particular line. All bidders must register and provide proof of funds prior to the auction. An idea began to form. A desperate, possibly foolish idea, but the only one I had left. The next day, I visited First National Bank and spoke with Mr. Winters, the manager who had handled our accounts since Harold and I first moved to town. I need a cashier's check for $150,000, I told him, sliding Mr. Simmons's bank transfer receipt across the desk. And I need a letter confirming I have these funds available for a property purchase. Mr. Winters raised his eyebrows but nodded. May I ask what property you're looking to buy, Mrs. Sullivan? My own, I said simply. The day of the auction arrived. I dressed carefully in the blue suit I had worn to Thomas's funeral, pinned Harold's mother's cameo brooch to my lapel, and tucked the cashier's check and bank letter into my handbag. Betty picked me up at 9, giving my outfit an approving nod. You look ready for battle, Marge. I feel like I'm going to be sick, I admitted as we drove to the auction house. Just remember what we discussed, Betty said firmly. Don't bid immediately. Let others establish the market. Don't make eye contact with Vanessa. And remember, you have one shot at this. Make it count. The auction room was already half full when we arrived. Betty and I chose seats near the back, where I could see everyone but wouldn't be immediately visible to Vanessa when she arrived. I registered as a bidder, receiving paddle number 42. At 10:15, Vanessa swept in with a tall man in an expensive suit, her real estate agent, I presumed. She looked confident, immaculate in a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. They took seats near the front, and I saw her scan the room briefly before turning back to chat with her companion. The auctioneer began promptly at 10:30, moving efficiently through the first several properties. I barely heard him, my attention fixed on the back of Vanessa's head, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. Lot 47, the property at 1842 Maple Avenue, the auctioneer finally announced. 2-story Victorian, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, on a quarter-acre lot, opening bid at $150,000. Several paddles went up immediately. Vanessa turned to watch, and that's when she spotted me. Our eyes locked, and I saw first surprise, then amusement cross her face. She leaned to whisper something to her companion, both of them smiling. The bidding moved quickly. $160,000. $175,000, $200,000. I kept my paddle down, watching as the field narrowed to 3 bidders, a middle-aged couple, a man in a contractor's jacket, and Vanessa's agent. At $250,000, the couple dropped out. At $275,000, the contractor hesitated, then shook his head. $275,000 going once, the auctioneer called. Going twice. I raised my paddle. $300,000. A murmur went through the room. Vanessa's head whipped around, her eyes widening as she saw me with my paddle raised high. The auctioneer nodded. $300,000 from paddle number 42. Do I hear $310,000? Vanessa's agent raised his paddle immediately. $310,000. $325,000, I countered, my voice stronger now. The bidding continued. $335,000. $350,000. $365,000. Each time I raised my paddle with increasing confidence. Each time Vanessa's face grew paler. At $400,000, her agent hesitated. Turning to confer with her, I could see her gesturing emphatically, her composure cracking. $410,000, the agent finally called. I took a deep breath. This was more than I had planned to go, more than the bank had verified I could pay. But I remembered what Mr. Simmons had said about the rest of Harold's collection, the pieces I hadn't sold. For the right buyer, the St. Gordon's Double Eagle alone could fetch over $250,000. $450,000, I called clearly. The room fell silent. Vanessa stood up abruptly, whispering urgently to her agent, who shook his head firmly. She sat back down, shoulders rigid with tension. $450,000 going once, the auctioneer called, his gavel raised. Going twice. Sold to paddle number 42 for $450,000. A smattering of applause broke out. Betty squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, but I barely felt it. My eyes were fixed on Vanessa, who had turned to stare at me with naked disbelief. I made my way to the front to complete the paperwork, walking past Vanessa as I did. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my flesh. "How?" she hissed. "How could you possibly afford this?" I gently removed her hand from my arm. "Harold provided for me even after he was gone, just as Thomas tried to do." Her face contorted with anger. "You can't do this. The money from this sale was supposed to be mine." "No," I said quietly. "This house was never meant to be sold. It was meant to be a home, my home." I moved past her to the auctioneer's table, where I presented my cashier's check as the deposit. I would need to secure financing for the remainder. But Mr. Winters had already assured me that with the value of the property and my credit history, it wouldn't be a problem. As I signed the papers, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The house was mine again. Legally, officially mine. Outside the auction house, Betty hugged me fiercely. "You did it." "Marge, I can't believe you outbid that shark." "Neither can I admitted, my hands still shaking slightly. "I'm going to be eating ramen noodles for the next 10 years to pay off the mortgage." "Worth every penny," Betty declared. "Now let's go home. You're home." We were halfway to the car when I heard rapid footsteps behind us. Vanessa's agent was hurrying toward us, his expression urgent. "Mrs. Sullivan," he called. "A moment, please." I tensed, expecting some legal threat or complication. "Yes?" He glanced around before speaking. "I want you to know, I had no idea about the circumstances of this sale until today. Miss Chen only told me this was an investment property she'd inherited." "And now?" I asked cautiously. He handed me a business card. "I have connections at several mortgage companies that specialize in helping seniors. They can offer better terms than a standard bank. Call me if you'd like an introduction." I took the card, surprised by this unexpected kindness. "Thank you." He nodded once, then hurried back to where Vanessa waited by a sleek black car, her expression thunderous. "Will wonders never cease?" Betty murmured as we continued to her car. Looks like your daughter-in-law doesn't inspire loyalty even among her own people." The next few weeks were a flurry of paperwork and meetings. True to his word, Vanessa's agent, Michael Donovan was his name, connected me with a mortgage specialist who secured favorable terms for my loan. With the proceeds from selling part of Harold's coin collection as the down payment, my monthly payments would be manageable on my fixed income. Throughout the process, I heard nothing from Vanessa. I assumed she had returned to Boston to lick her wounds. I was wrong. Exactly 1 month after the auction, a delivery truck pulled up in front of my house. 2 men began unloading large boxes onto my driveway. "Excuse me," I called from the porch. "I think you have the wrong address." The delivery man checked his clipboard. 1842 Maple Avenue? Delivery for Margaret Sullivan?" "That's me, but I didn't order anything." He shrugged. "It's all paid for, ma'am. Just need your signature." Confused, I signed for the delivery. When the truck left, I examined the boxes. They were from a high-end furniture store in Boston. The shipping label showed Vanessa as the sender. I opened the largest box first and found an elegant cherrywood dining table, almost identical to the one that had been in my dining room for decades. But new. The next box contained matching chairs, then a sideboard, a grandfather clock, a complete bedroom set. By the time I'd opened all the boxes, my driveway was filled with beautiful new furniture, replacements for nearly every major piece in my house. At the bottom of the last box was an envelope. Inside was a short note in Vanessa's precise handwriting. "Margaret, these are to replace the furniture I sold from the house while you were visiting Thomas in the hospital." I told myself I was just clearing out old junk that would have to go eventually. I was wrong. This doesn't make us even. Nothing could. But it's a start. Fee. I sat on my porch steps, the note trembling in my hand. During those terrible months of Thomas's illness, I'd been so consumed with grief that I hadn't noticed the gradual disappearance of furniture pieces from my home. The Eastlake sideboard from Harold's mother. The grandfather clock we'd bought on our 20th anniversary. The maple bedroom set we'd saved for years to purchase, all gone, and now replaced with new pieces that, while beautiful, carried none of the history, none of the memories. But it was an acknowledgement, a confession, maybe even the beginning of remorse. It took 3 days and the help of several neighbors to move all the new furniture into the house. Some pieces I kept, others I stored in the garage, unable to part with my old, familiar furnishings just yet. The new grandfather clock I placed in the hallway where the old one had stood. Its ticking was different, crisper, less resonant, but as the days passed, I grew accustomed to its rhythm. A week later, another envelope arrived, this one containing legal documents. Vanessa had formally quit-claimed any interest in the property at 1842 Maple Avenue to me. The deed was once again solely in my name. There was no note this time. But none was needed. The message was clear enough. 3 months passed. I settled back into my home, gradually integrating the new furniture with my remaining pieces, creating a blend of old and new that felt surprisingly harmonious. I'd begun volunteering at the local library 2 days a week and had joined a watercolor class at the senior center. Life was finding its rhythm again. On a crisp October afternoon, as I was raking leaves in the front yard, a taxi pulled up to the curb. The back door opened and Vanessa stepped out. She looked different, thinner, less polished. Her hair was loose around her shoulders rather than in its usual severe style. She paid the driver and stood uncertainly at the edge of my property, a small suitcase beside her. I set the rake against the maple tree and waited, neither inviting nor dismissing her. She took a deep breath and walked up the path. "Hello, Margaret." "Vanessa." I nodded, keeping my voice neutral. "This is unexpected." "I know. I should have called." She glanced at the house, then back to me. "The new landscaping looks nice. the hydrangeas especially. Thank you. I'd used some of my remaining coin money to restore the gardens Harold had loved so much. What brings you here? She seemed to struggle for words. Something I'd never seen from the usually articulate attorney. I've left the firm, she finally said. Started my own practice, like I always wanted. Congratulations. It's not in Boston. I've opened an office in Millfield. Millfield was just 20 minutes away. I couldn't hide my surprise. Why here? She looked down at her hands, twisting a simple band on her right ring finger, Thomas's wedding ring, I realized with a jolt. I've been seeing a grief counselor. It was a condition of my continuing at the firm after I had a breakdown in court. This was news to me. I'd had no idea she was struggling. She helped me understand that I've been running away, Vanessa continued. From Thomas's death, from my grief, from the person I became afterward. She finally met my eyes. From what I did to you. A gust of wind sent leaves swirling around us. I pulled my cardigan tighter, saying nothing. I told myself it was what Thomas would have wanted, me using the house to start over. To build the life we had planned. But that was a lie. Her voice cracked. He would have been ashamed of what I did, of who I became. I thought of my son, his kindness, his integrity, his unwavering belief in doing the right thing. Yes, I agreed softly. He would have been. Vanessa flinched but nodded. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm trying to find my way back to the person Thomas loved, the person I want to be again. She gestured to her suitcase. I've rented an apartment in Millfield. I'll be moving in next week. I wanted you to hear it from me. We stood in silence, the years of hurt and anger between us like a physical presence. Yet somehow it felt less solid than before, more permeable. Would you like some tea? I finally asked. I was about to take a break anyway. Relief flickered across her face. I'd like that. Thank you. In the kitchen, my kitchen, I put the kettle on and took down 2 mugs. Vanessa sat at the table, her eyes taking in the room, the new cabinets she'd paid for, the old Formica countertops I'd refused to replace, the height markings for Thomas still visible on the doorframe. I kept them, I said, noticing her gaze on the pencil marks. When the painters came, I made them work around it. She nodded, blinking rapidly. He was so tall, even as a child. Like his father. I set a mug of tea in front of her and took the opposite seat. Harold used to tease him that we'd need to raise the door frames. A small smile touched her lips. He told me that story. He told me a lot of stories about this house. About growing up here. It was a good place to raise a child, I said simply. That's why I came today, actually. Vanessa cupped her hands around the mug, seeming to gather courage. There's something I need to tell you. Something Thomas and I never got the chance to tell you before he got sick. I felt a sudden chill that had nothing to do with the autumn weather. What is it? I'm pregnant. Her eyes met mine, apprehensive yet determined. Thomas and I had been trying for a while. We were going to tell you at Christmas, but then the diagnosis came, and everything happened so fast. I stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. But Thomas has been gone almost a year. We had embryos frozen, she explained. Before he started treatment, the doctors warned us the chemotherapy might affect his fertility, so we planned ahead. Her hand moved unconsciously to her still flat stomach. It's a boy, due in February. A boy, my son's child. A grandchild I never knew was coming. Why now? I asked, my voice hardly more than a whisper. After everything, because he deserves to know his father's home, Vanessa said simply. To see the doorframe with his father's height marked on it. To hear stories about the man who wanted him so badly he made plans for him, even when he knew he might not live to see him born. She took a shaky breath. And because he deserves to know his grandmother. Outside, the wind chimes. Harold had hung years ago tinkled softly. The grandfather clock in the hallway, the new one, chimed 3 times. And somewhere deep inside me, a knot that had been wound tight since the day Thomas told me of his diagnosis began. Slowly, to loosen. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Vanessa said quietly. "I know what I did was unforgivable. I'm just asking for a chance. For him, not for me. To know his family. All of his family." I looked at the woman across from me, no longer the polished, ruthless attorney who had tried to steal my home, but not quite the bright, charming young woman my son had fallen in love with either. Someone in between. Someone trying to find her way back. "Thomas would be happy about the baby," I said finally. "He always wanted to be a father. He would have been an amazing dad." Her voice caught, like his father before him. "Yes." I felt tears welling up and didn't try to stop them. "Like Harold." We sat in silence, drinking our tea, the ghost of my son, her husband, the father of her unborn child, present in the room with us. Not a comfortable silence, not yet, but not the hostile one that had existed between us for so long either. "I should go," Vanessa said eventually, rising from the table. "The taxi will be back soon." I nodded, walking her to the door. On the porch, she turned to face me once more. "Thank you for the tea, Margaret, and for listening." "When do you move to Millfield?" I asked. "Next Saturday. I don't have much to bring. I sold most of the Boston apartment furniture." I thought for a moment, then made a decision. "There's a decent Italian restaurant on Main Street, Salvatore's. They do a good lasagna. Maybe we could have dinner there, next Sunday if you're free." Surprise and cautious hope flickered across her face. "I'd like that." "Good." I managed a small smile. "We have a lot to talk about. A nursery to plan, for one thing." Her eyes widened. "A nursery? That 4th bedroom upstairs never did get much use," I said. "It would make a fine nursery for when the baby visits his grandmother." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she made no move to wipe them away. Yes, it would." The taxi pulled up, honking once. Vanessa picked up her suitcase, hesitated, then set it down again. Cautiously, as if approaching a wild animal, she stepped forward and embraced me. I stood stiffly for a moment, then slowly raised my arms to return the hug. She smelled of expensive perfume and hospital antiseptic and something else, something that reminded me, painfully, of Thomas. "Thank you," she whispered against my shoulder, "for giving us another chance." I didn't say it was forgiveness. It wasn't, not yet. Forgiveness would take time, but as I watched her taxi drive away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Hope for a future that included my grandchild. Hope for healing the wounds that had torn our family apart. Inside, I went to the kitchen and ran my fingers over the height markings on the door frame. Soon, there would be new marks to add, inch by inch, year by year. New memories to create. New life within these old walls. I glanced at the calendar hanging beside the refrigerator. Next Sunday was circled in red, my standing dinner date with Betty. I'd have to call and reschedule. There was a more important dinner to attend now, the first of many, I hoped. The first step on a long road toward a future I hadn't imagined possible just hours before. Outside, the maple tree that had given our street its name blazed crimson and gold in the late afternoon sun. The tree I'd planted when Thomas was born, now tall and strong and glorious in its autumn finery. The tree that would shade my grandchild's stroller next summer. I stood at the window watching the leaves dance in the breeze, thinking of Harold, of Thomas, of the baby boy who would carry their legacy forward, thinking of second chances and new beginnings and the strange, winding paths that grief can take us down. The house around me, My house, hard won and finally truly mine, creaked and settled as it had for decades, holding its memories close, making room for new ones, welcoming me home. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.